And number 4982, sozo, is the Greek word we are featuring in this section, and we are going to show the pronouns in this section also for our grammatical structure. Now, last night we had a giant storm come through here in Newport, Oregon. Thunder and lightning, boy, it was really loud. We'd hardly ever have it. And so the tail end of it is still coming through, so if you hear any noises in the background, that's the wind hitting the house. It begins in verse 18. Tavta avtu laluntos avtis idu. Tavta, these things, that's a demonstrative pronoun. These, displaying it, demonstrating, this is it, of his, and that would be Jesus, referring to him earlier, of his speaking to them. And so here you go to the previous section and look and see what it's referring to. And behold, one ruler having come did obeisance to him. Archon is elthon prosekini avto, a ruler of the synagogue. It says in Mark 5:22, his name was Jairus. And he comes and does obeisance, which is getting down on the ground in front of somebody that is of a higher authority than yourself, like a head of a family or a president or a king or whatever. And so this man, the ruler, another place when Jesus was healing on the Sabbath, came against Jesus and told him there's time to heal, but not on the Sabbath. And Jesus chastised him. But this ruler is different. He has a problem, and that is, it says, saying, Oti e thigatir mu arti etelevtison, that my daughter, thigatir is a derivative, daughter, thiga, just now came to an end. That is, she died. Jesus sees this and knows that this man is coming because he is in deep pain, because his daughter has just died. Allah elthon epithis tin hira su epavtin ke zisate. But having come, place your hand upon her, and she will live. Your su is in the genitive, singular, second person, and her, third person, feminine. So now we know it's a her because it's feminine, and so that would be the daughter because that's the only place anybody's feminine in this section here, right where we're at. So he has a belief that Jesus can raise the daughter from the dead. Because if the daughter's dead and he says she will live if you come, wow, that's quite a belief. I don't believe anybody was raised from the dead before this. Possibly the widow of Nain, whose son was being led out of the city, where Jesus saw the procession and touched the boy and he rose up to the mother. Now, maybe that happened earlier. It's mentioned in another book of the Gospels. But here he has this belief that this man can do something about it. It's too bad that the Jews today, 2024, don't have the same feeling. The people in the heads of the rabbis don't have the same feeling about Jesus. To come to him, and he will heal you, change your life, and deliver you to his eternal home, which is in New Jerusalem. But no, the Jews today have followed the forefathers of the progeny of the crucifiers who yelled out to him, his blood be upon us and our children. So after the crucifixion, things changed for the Jews. You were either for or against Jesus. But this man, he was for Jesus. He had a problem, and that was his daughter who had died, and he wants her to come back. Now, the exclamation here is not normally, you would normally maybe see it at the end, But I try to put the exclamation as close to the imperative, which would be epithes, place. And he's saying, place your hand upon her in the imperative, and she will live. And the she will live is in the future tense. So if I put it back here, a person they would know that there is an imperative someplace. But here it's a little closer. I don't know. I had a hard time deciding whether I should go with convention and put it at the end or closer to the verb, the imperative verb. So anyway, that is why the exclamation is there and not at the end of the verse. Verse 19, Ke agerthis o Isus ikoluthison av to, and Jesus, having arisen, followed to him. Ke imathite av tu, and his disciples. Now you would say, well, now you know it's Jesus has disciples, so it's obvious. But if you didn't know and it says his disciples, you might think it could be the ruler of the synagogue. But Jesus is the closest pronoun that fits the description. The ruler of the synagogue is further back. So up he goes with the disciples, and they're heading towards where this synagogue was located, maybe in Capernaum. In 9:20, Ke idhu agini amorusa dodeka eti proselthusa opisthon. And behold, a gini, a woman. We have gynecology and misogyny for a woman. Amorusa, it's almost a derivative there. Amoru, imero. And 12, dodeca. Duo is 2 and deca is 10, 12 years. She had this hemorrhaging. And having come forward behind, she touched the decorative hem. Ipsato tu crospedu tu imatiu of 2. So she also has this belief, just like the head of the synagogue. And she comes and she touches the hem and says, Elegegar en iafti. She said in herself. Now, herself right here, 1438, is a reflective pronoun. Herself, self. It was a masculine, it would be himself. And you can look in our analytical lexicon, and it would show you that this was feminine. And what does she say? Ean monon apsome tu amatiu avtu. If only I should touch his cloak, just to touch him. And she doesn't want, apparently, anyone to know or him to know of her condition, which it was a condition that was considered Levitically unclean. So if you touch somebody, you would make that person Levitically unclean. So she knows that touching Jesus, he's going to be Levitically unclean. But she does it in desperation, and she says, I will be delivered. So thesome. Now here's our 4982. And 4982 is sozo. It's used in other places in the Apostolic Bible for escape, save, preserve, and then deliver here. It appears 397 places in the Bible, and 3/4 of those places are in the Old Testament. The King James called this word made whole. And Tyndall earlier than the King James said made safe, and the New King James changed it to made well. Now, making a well out of this Greek word is a stretch. There's no way. But it is what it is. But I use deliver almost everywhere except for some places. I'll bring these out. Genesis 19:17, it says, And it came to pass when they led them outside and said, by escape with your own life. So here we have the word escape. And it used many places, escaping, for this Greek word. In Genesis 19:20 it says, Behold, the certain city is near for me to take refuge there, which is small, but there I will be delivered. So here we use delivered. And then in Genesis 32:30, it says, For I saw, I think it's Jacob, for I saw God face to face, and my life was preserved. You could say my life was delivered, but that's not the same, or my life was saved. No, preserved to me was the best in that spot. Matthew 8:25, it says, and his disciples, having come forward, roused him. And we had just went through that, where he was sleeping in the boat during the storm. And they were saying, O Lord, save us, we perish. Now that is a word save there, I think is correct. It's an instant change from drowning or being a boat sinking to saving him. It's a thing, but it's not ongoing. It's delivering is something that's ongoing. Preserving is sort of in a time capsule. It can go on a long time, but it starts at one certain spot. So they all have certain little aspects to them that are different, where one fits one context better than the other. And Matthew 16:25, it says, for whoever should want to preserve his life will lose it, but whoever should lose his life because of me shall find it. So preserving his life, I think preserving here is better than will save his life. You suppose you could use that one, but I used preserve. Delivered wouldn't fit. So for whoever should want to deliver his life, no, Jesus is the one that delivers. So our belief in Jesus Christ who delivers us. So here, if I want to preserve my life, I want to stay alive, then, well, it says here, he's saying whoever should lose his life because of me shall find it. But if a person is preserving his life without Jesus, that is going to lose it. He doesn't say that, but it's implied in the meaning there. So now Jesus is touched by this woman, and what happens? O the Isus epistrophis, but Jesus, a postpositive, they, but Jesus having turned, ke idon aftin, and beholding her. So he knew who it was that touched him. Another place, he said, something like, who touched me? And the disciples said, it was a whole crowd, everybody's touching you, what are you talking about? But here, it's a little different, and he knew who she was when he saw her. Ipe said, Tharsi thigatir, be of courage, O daughter, and there's the imperative, be of courage, imperative, be of courage, take courage in Jesus Christ. Don't think that, you're going through this life like a willy-nilly and no control over anything and fearful, worrying about all sorts of things. I mean, there's a lot of things to worry about, for sure. Sickness in the family, sickness with yourself, political problems going on, wars, famines, losing your money and stocks crashing, all kinds of things. But going through these things, you can either be down over them, or you can take courage and believe Jesus is here. He's right next to me. He's delivering me. I'm not delivering myself through this life. Jesus is delivering me. I'm on Jesus. I'm with him, and he's taking me. We're going to go through storms together. We're going to stumble. I'm going to stumble together. We're going to see horrible things together. But going through all this, bad weather, good weather, all these things, he is still there next to me, and he's still there, hopefully, next to you. So if you saw him and you know this is God, then you would know, what am I worrying about? He's got it all under control. I don't have anything under control. But because we don't physically see him, then we need to read the Word of God and see what he tells us. It's like if he's not there, and all of a sudden you have your cell phone, and your cell phone rings, and you're going through, you don't know which way to go, and your cell phone rings, and you pick it up, and it's Jesus saying, turn right. The other way is it goes off of a cliff, and you'll die. Turn right and go on to the right. Oh, thank you. And so you go to the right, and he's giving you a call. And the call is through this word. His word is the call. So reading it all the time, I believe that whenever problem you're running into, when you open the Bible, And Lord will bring you to the place which you need to read, because he's communicating with you. It's not just a static book with a bunch of words down there. It's a communication. He communicated with people when he was on the earth, and he's communicating with you and me now. And so what does he say? Pistis su, your belief, sosake se, has delivered you. Your belief, and I went through that in the last section or so of belief over faith. Your faith, I just don't like faith. Belief is an action. Your belief has delivered you. It's a verb. Delivered again, it's not saved. The courage, the belief hasn't saved. Being saved, being taken is a thing that Jesus is going to do at the very end when we're taken from this life to the next. That would be saved. But delivering it, your belief has delivered you, and here it's more of a being delivered from an ailment. Ke esothi igini apo tis oras akinis. And the woman was delivered from that hour. 1565 is emphatic, that hour, that certain hour, that woman was delivered. Now it changes and goes back to where the man, the ruler of the synagogue, came earlier, and Jesus was on the way, ran into the woman there who touched him, and it says in 23, Ke elthon o Isus istin ikian tu archontas, and Jesus, having come into the house of the ruler, ke idon tus avlitas ke ton oklon thori vumenon, and beholding the pipers and the multitude making a disruption. Sort of like the Irish wake, I would suppose. We had music there, maybe playing dirges, music that somebody dies, multitude crying and women crying and screaming and all sorts of mayhem in a way. And what happens, like Leggy says, Aftis, he says to them, Anahorite, withdraw, leave, get out of here. Gar, and gar is postpositive, far, apethane to coration, for the young woman died not. Oh yeah? She's there and she's dead. But Allah kathevthi, but sleeps. Jesus used this with Lazarus. When Lazarus died, he told the disciples that Lazarus was sleeping and he wanted to go back and rouse him up. And disciples said, what do you want to get him up for? If he's sleeping, he'll get better. And he said, oh, he died. He died. So he sleeps. Well, we are going to sleep unless we're taken to be with the Lord in the air, which it talks about in 2 Thessalonians 2. But until then, we are going to be taken from this life and put to sleep, and then awaken somewhere else. I had a major operation years ago and went into the room where the anesthesiologist was putting the drops into the little thing that goes into my veins or arteries, whichever it goes into. And I was laying there, and I said, when you sleep, do you dream? Mr. Vanderpool, it's all over. And it was like I didn't get the word dream out. And then that whole operation went, and I came back, and there was nothing. I mean, absolutely no thought, no dreaming, no nothing. I'm thinking this is what it's going to be like when we are put in the chrysalis stage, where the little caterpillar is crawling around up the tree, and then he weaves this little bitty cocoon around him, hangs there for a period of time, and he's asleep. He's in there sleeping, and he's metamorphosizing. He's turning into goo, and all of a sudden the goo turns into other little things inside like wings, and all of a sudden he knocks open the little hole, starts coming out and climbs out, and what is he? He's a beautiful butterfly that just flies all over the place. He's like in a way different world than he was when he was sleeping in that safe little cocoon, and that's what we're going to be like when we cross over to be with Jesus, and we are given wings, I believe. Maybe, maybe not. But we'll fly, I think. It's going to be wonderful. But what did they do? They ridiculed him. Ke kategelon off too. Oh, you're crazy. Get out of here. In 35, ote they, but, there goes another postpositive, but when, ote is when, exevalithi, o oklos, but when the multitude was cast out, now the room is quiet, house is quiet, and the little girl's in the other room, iselthon, having entered, ekratise tis, hieros of tis, he held her hand, the little girl who was dead, who now, by touching him, would make him unclean, Levitically unclean, because you're not to touch a dead person. That makes you Levitically unclean. You have to go through all sorts of things to cleanse yourself through the sacrifices and so forth. But what did Jesus do? He's sinless, so how could he be unclean? Well, it says, Ke egerthi to korasion, and the young woman arose. She's not dead, so he's not unclean. In 9:26, Ke exilthan, e fimi afti, is olin tigin ekinin. In that is in the emphatic, and and this reputation, in e femi is feminine. This reputation went throughout into the entire land. So all the people now have heard. They've heard the synagogue ruler tell all the people, my daughter was dead. People witnessed it, saw it. She was dead, and she's alive. And they're telling all the people in Galilee. And the woman that had the flow was touched, and she's telling all these people. So the fame of fame comes from that word. The reputation came into that entire land of Galilee. Our next section, Jesus cures and casts out.